Start, Principal Sir.
Yeah, start.
Good morning to all who are here today to attend the International E-Conference on Redefining Business in Digital Era Issues and Challenges. In spite of the unending challenges that 2020 is throwing at us in the form of COVID-19 and others, you have joined us today and we appreciate that very much. Our distinguished resource persons from India and abroad, our delegates from all over the country, our management members of PEC, colleagues and students, we hope you are well and safe wherever you are joining us today from. Before we begin, may I request you all to please rise for the national anthem of India.
There we go.
नायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Good morning and a warm welcome to one and all. I now request Ms. Nidhi Chandorkar, conference co-convener, to brief us about the college.
A very good morning to all of you. Bansaga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, Powai, welcomes all the dignitaries and the participants to the Multidisciplinary International E-Conference on Redefining Business in Digital Era, Issues and Challenges. When we enter our premises, we bow in front of Goddess Saraswati for her blessing because we believe and surrender to the spirit of the shlok Kamadhenu Gunavidya Sadaiv Fal Dayani. Knowledge grants all the wishes all the times. Bansanga Mumbai was established in 1927 as a charitable trust and devoted itself to the cause of education, healthcare, social reform of downtrodden, underprivileged class of people. The Sangha has been in service for people for more than 9 decades. Initially, Sangha established 2 night schools mainly to cater to the needs of working students during the daytime. During the last decade, more emphasis was given to the education for the masses. The Ban Sangha is headed by President Mr. Padmanabh Bayade. The college is managed by Powai Education Committee. Chairman of Powai Education Committee is CA Shankar B. Shetty. Vice Chairman are Shri D.R. Shetty and Shri Nityanand Hegde. Secretary Shri Harish Vasu Shetty. Treasurer CA Harish D. Shetty. Bansanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies was established in 2008 by Bansanga, Mumbai. The college is affiliated to University of Mumbai. It is committed to the promotion and propagation of quality education with excellence. Our vision is personality development for nation building. Our mission is to enable young minds to discover and develop their potential in an environment conducive to learning, to create technically competent young individuals with practical skills, to develop socially conscious and morally upright global citizens for a new India. Our quality policy is to make the institution student-centric with continuous upgradation of knowledge of the faculty, which in turn benefit the stakeholders in general, students in particular, to serve the society and meet the global challenges. The college offers 6 undergraduate courses: BCom, BCom with Banking and Insurance, BCom with Accountancy and Finance, Bachelor's of Management Studies, BSc in Information Technology, BA in Mass Media and Communication. We also offer 2 postgraduate courses, MCom Accountancy and MSc IT. Our college is the Center for PhD in Commerce, approved by University of Mumbai. We offer various need-based certificate and add-on courses. During this journey of 11 years, we have won many awards and recognitions. To begin with, we were accredited with A grade in the first cycle of NAC in the year 2016. We also got awarded with Ramakrishna Bajaj National Quality Certificate of Merit in 2019. The peer team from Ramakrishna Bajaj had visited our premises and has interacted with our chairman, C.A. Shankar Shetty, and the staff members for assessment of the quality from top to bottom. We had won Education Excellence Award in 2017 by Indus Foundation, Hyderabad, New Jersey, USA. We had also won Healthy Workplace Award in 2017 by Arogya World of Public Health Foundation of India. This award is given on the basis of hygiene, health, and happiness indices of the institution. We got an appreciation award from the ex-Chief Minister of Maharashtra at Bansanga Kurla for bagging the A grade in the very first cycle of NAC. The other achievements are that we are permanently affiliated to University of Mumbai, and we are an ISO 9001-2015 certified institution. We have many collaboration for the skill development of faculty and students. We are in collaboration with Tata Institute of Social Sciences for their NUSSD program for college students. We are in collaboration with spoken tutorials of IIT Bombay. For academic exchange program and for research, we are in collaboration with Loknetri Venkatrao Hire College of Nashik and Saraswat Vidyalaya Sri Dora Kapulo Goa College. We are in also collaboration with Kotak Education Foundation, which is an NGO which works for the upliftment of underprivileged children, especially from the slum. We are in collaboration with Ambika Yog Kotev for yoga sessions in our institution. Our institution believes in providing a platform for exhibiting and felicitating talents of our students. We organize annual day celebration every year. We have an intercollegiate fest, Immersive. This year, in 2019, we had nearly 70 colleges participating in it. The Department of Information Technology had organized one-day national conference in the month of August in this academic year. We have state-of-the-art infrastructure. Our infrastructure comprises of 4 well-equipped IT labs, 35 ICT-enabled AC classrooms, and we have a rich repository of online and offline learning resources in our library. In this conference, we have an organizing committee which is headed by Dr. Sridhar Shetty, our principal, Dr. Vijay Santosh, our Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, Mr. Sandesha Shetty, Vice Principal and Convener, Mr. Virendra Singh, MCOM Coordinator and Co-Convener, Mrs. Nidhi Chandorkar, DMS Coordinator and the Co-Convener. The members of the organizing committee are Mrs. Kalpana Rai Menon, Mrs. Sahana Ravi Prasad, Dr. Tushar Sambare, Mrs. Smita Ravindranath, Mr. Vijay Vishwakarma, Mrs. Steffi Salve, Mrs. Desha Taliwala, and Mrs. Prachi Agarwal. I once again welcome you to this e-conference. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nidhi ma'am, for the elaborate and evident description of our college. I now invite Mr. Virendra Singh, conference co-convener, to brief us about the conference.
Good morning, one and all. Business and education. for that matter, life itself, has become digital dependent to a large extent, and that is how it is going to be in future too. With this scenario in view, the college has decided to organize a multidisciplinary international conference on redefining business in digital era, issues and challenges, the best suited topic for current lockdown situation. The objectives are to understand the changing scenario of business environment in digital era, explore new models and verticals of business compatibility with digital era, to foresee how the different sectors of the economy respond to the digital era, to innovations and to discuss issues and challenges of redefining business in digital era. The conference was supposed to be conducted on 21st March 2020, but owing to COVID-19, we postponed it and now hosting e-conference. We have received overwhelming response in the form of research paper from India and abroad. In all, we received 275 research papers, and after plagiarism check, we have restricted to 184 research papers. We rejected 89 research papers. The 184 research paper consists of 66 IJAIR journal with impact factor, 111 UGC approved careless journal, 7 UGC approved Scopus journal. We are really grateful to all the delegates for their quality research paper and responding to our invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I truly believe that redefining business in digital era is the theme of the hour in this COVID-19 pandemic. I now request Dr. Sridhara Shetty, Principal, Bansanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning to all of you. I understand that all of you are safe and fine. That is the need of the hour. Cordial welcome once again to all to our Multidisciplinary International Conference, Redefining Business in Digital Era, Issues and Challenges. For the information and understanding of all delegates, we in SM Shetty College believe that research is the hallmark of any result-oriented, progressive and learning organization. To make the academic environment vibrant, the institution must be research-oriented. And in SM Shetty, it's not only the faculty members, tens of hundreds of students are also presenting papers in the national and international conferences. In fact, this topic was conceived and developed nearly 6 months ago. And we have put in nearly 5 to 6 months of efforts to take it to its logical end. It was supposed to be held on 21st March 2020. Because of COVID, we postponed it. Now there is a new platform. Online we are doing it, and that is the need of the hour. I think looking at the trend and the tendency in the days to come, I think online will become the order of the day, which will substantially reduce time, energy, and cost. Now coming to the selection of the topic for our international conference. Just to go back 300 years in the history of the world, I think we have started with the steam engine. I think afterwards electricity, then afterwards electronics, IT, information technology. Now we are in the era of digitalization. Anywhere, anytime. Therefore, we have chosen very apt and relevant area for our international conference. And I think this topic once again proved quite apt and relevant even after post-COVID-19. In fact, we have received overwhelming response from the nook and corner of India. As my co-convener said that we have received more than 275 papers. After restriction and all that, it's around 225 papers. And we are going to publish in 3 types of journals. So once again, I express my gratitude to all the participants who have submitted the papers for their quality response. Nowadays, in the conferences, we are talking so much about COVID. People say and equate this to the post scenario of Second World War. And we are shifting from old normal to new normal. So many changes have taken place. And some of the sectors of the economy have received a major jerk. And for some of the sectors, I think a bright future is there. I think all this we can discuss in today's international conference. Now coming to my welcome part, my management is always supportive and encourages. Whatever research and academic, it is their top priority. I take this opportunity to welcome our chairman, Sri C.A. Shankar B.T. Shetty, our vice chairman, Sri B.R. Shetty, our vice chairman, Sri Nityananda Hegde, our secretary, Sri Harishu Vasu Shetty, and our treasurer, C.A. Harish D. Shetty. Sir, I extend a warm welcome to all of you. Today's international speaker and our guest is Mr. Dave O. Gorman, and previously was the professor in the US, a business consultant. When we requested him to deliver introductory remarks on our conference, sir has readily accepted our invitation. Sir, I extend a warm welcome to you. Our keynote speaker today is Dr. Sajjan Matthew, Registrar, Evaluation, Alliance Business School, Bangalore. When I contacted my friend from Bangalore, my friend Dr. Ramesh recommended Dr. Sajjan Matthew is quite apt and relevant to deliver on this topic. I think, sir, you have the blend of knowledge of both engineering as well as the practice of the industry. And yesterday, we had a small interaction with you. With that glimpse, we found that you are the right person to deliver talk on this particular area. On behalf of my college, I extend a cordial welcome you, sir, Dr. Sajjan Matthew. Today, our other guests are Dr. Arvind Luhar, HOD of Commerce Accountancy, Yusuf Ismail College, and also the chairman of Board of Studies Accountancy, University of Mumbai. Sir, you are well known throughout Mumbai, not only because of your academics, but also for the humility. I think under your guidance, our paper researchers will get a new direction. Sir, I welcome you. Another guest from Bangalore is Dr. M.B. Rishikesh, Director, CMR Business School, a well-known academician and a very good organizer. Sir, I extend a cordial welcome to you, sir. And Dr. Arvind Luhar and Dr. M.P. Rishikesh are the chairpersons for the papers in accountancy, commerce, management studies, and economics. One more guest today, chairperson is Dr. Mangesh Karanjikar, well known in the field of mass media in Mumbai, and also going to deal the IT papers also. Sir, I extend a warm welcome to you. Coming to my own people, I extend a warm welcome to the principals of other sections of our institution, Mr. Seema Sablo, the principal of State Board, Mrs. Mildred Lobo, the principal of International School, Mr. Sandeep Singh, the general manager, administration and academics, the vice principals and the coordinators of all other sections, my vice principals, my coordinators, and the conference team consists of Mr. Sanjay Shetty, the convener, Mr. Virendra Singh, co-convener, Mrs. Nidhi Chandrokar, co-convener, all coordinators, teachers, non-teaching staff, invitees. I extend a cordial welcome to all of you. Finally, once again, cordial welcome to all of you, and I wish and assure that it would be quite effective and efficient and at the end enriching with a lot of value additions. Good luck to the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request Mr. Sandesha Shetty, Vice Principal and Conference Convener, to introduce our e-conference keynote speaker, Dr. Sarjan Matthew, Registrar, Examination and Evaluation, Alliance University, Bangalore.
Good morning. I take this opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Sarjan Matthew. Dr. Sarjan Matthew is a trainer, teacher, and consultant in the field of information system and e-business. Dr. Matthew has graduated in engineering and followed this with a master's degree in business administration, software marketing, MPhil, and doctorate in e-learning. Matthew's industrial stint include working in reputed Indian corporations such as Apollo Tyres Limited and Simplex Solutions. During this time, he was associated with many national and international projects. Dr. Matthew has authored 4 books in the areas of analysis and design, database management system, software engineering, computer technology and programming. Now prescribed as textbook in various Indian and international universities, including Queen's University, Brighton, UK. Dr. Matthew is currently working on new books in the field of business information system. Dr. Matthew has also designed and conducted several training programs for leading professional bodies, corporations, and institutions in India and abroad. He is on various university examination board as a subject expert for the University Grant Commission. His areas of interest include information, blockchain, e-business, e-learning, and MIS. He works as the Registrar, Examination and Evaluation, Alliance University, Bangalore. Sir, on behalf of Bansanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, I heartily welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is indeed our pleasure to have Dr. Sarjan Matthew, a stalwart in the IT field and industry. We are eagerly waiting to experience your expertise, and we will hear from Sarjan sir later. I request Dr. Liji Santosh, Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, to introduce our e-conference international guest, Professor Dave O'Gorman, former professor, Santa Fe College, Florida, and a business consultant at Phnom Penh, Cambodia.
Good morning to you all. It is my proud privilege to introduce our international guest speaker of the day. Professor Dave O'Gorman is an early retired former professor of economics, most recently from the faculty of Santa Fe College in Gainesville, Florida. He is a graduate of Clarkson University, New York, postgraduate from Iowa State University, and he also earned certifications from National Economic Development Council's Economic Development Finance Professional, certification on the Artist in Residence program at the Atlantic Center for the Arts in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. He has taught the principles of micro and macroeconomic sequence for over 20 years. In addition to the courses on agricultural finance, business credit analysis, and European Monetary Union under the Euro, he has several research papers published to his credit. He visited India in 2017 in relation to a faculty exchange program in Mumbai. He presently lives in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, where he provides freelance business consulting services for the troubled and expanding small businesses while he completes work on his first full-length work of fiction. Today, he is going to present his paper titled Swimming from the Leaky Lifeboat, Crisis Response Strategies for Digital Commerce in the Coming Post-Interventionist Economy. Dear delegates, he has written this paper exclusively for SM Shetty College. We at Sanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies is honored to have you amongst us as a guest speaker. Welcome, Professor Dave. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my video has been blocked. I just had a power interruption. I apologize for that. So I had to scramble to get the computer restarted.
Now you are, we can see you.
Okay, let me see if I can get resituated a little bit here. I apologize for that. We don't have very many power cuts, but we always have them at the worst possible moment here. That's just something you live with here in Cambodia. So thank you all, and I apologize for being just a little bit frazzled there, but it is truly an honor to be here. Thank you, Principal Shetty. Thank you, Chairman Shetty. Thank you, Vice Principal Santosh. I will do my very best. I hope that you'll find the presentation interesting, and I hope that we can have a good, lively question and answer at the conclusion. Can you all see my...
Excuse me, sir. Your session is after our chairman, sir's address. So please hold on for another 5 minutes. Yes.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I came back. I came to an introduction, and I thought I was being told to start. I apologize for that.
No issues, sir.
Okay. So sorry. Yes, no issues, sir. No issues at all. John, please continue.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Surely. Thank you, ma'am. We are highly delighted to have Professor Dave O'Gorman, a highly intellectual and an apt speaker for our e-conference. I would like to mention that the level of humility and humor exhibited by Professor Dave is at another level, which I will personally look up to. We will surely hear from sir later. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I now request Chairman PEC, CA Shri Shankar B. Shetty, to address the guests and delegates, and also them to release the conference journals.
Good morning to all of you. I'm really happy to be part of this webinar, Redefining Business in Digital Era, Issues and Challenges. Today's paper presenters, Dave O'Gorman, Dr. Sujan Matthews, and also Dr. Aravind Dohar, MP Rishikesh, and Dr. Kanolkar, Principal Dr. Sridhar Shetty, and all the coordinators and the persons who are responsible for this webinar. Let me thank you, all of you, for organizing such a relevant webinar, mostly in this COVID time. As we all know, today business is driven by digital technologies. We are a society driven by digital technologies now. Every business, majority of the business is being done by digital technologies, either through mobile services, social networking, cloud, analytics, or many other forms of businesses. Basically, especially today, with the advent of COVID-19, we see a lot of advancement in this digital technology. Even this webinar itself, through Zoom technology or many other technologies there, a lot of business has been done through digital means. Even education, today the government of India is talking of e-Vidya and many other modes, where digital education being developed, not only in India, entire world. I think at this COVID-19 period, this is more relevant. The business process, the business model, domain and organization structures, everything will have to be redesigned to face the digital technology. What does digital technology means? Doing right thing in just in time rather than just in case. Whole world has become a global village and anybody can do business from anywhere through digital means. For succeeding this business, one has to develop the skill to face the digital technology. Every participant, including the owners and the employees, should be updated of the technologies to adopt the digital technology. I think our college has done a great job to expose all our teachers and the other people who know how to face this digital technology and also what are the issues and challenges. I must compliment the team and also the speakers, the paper presenters for this great job. Thank you very much for inviting me today. Wish you all the best in this webinar. Now, I'm very, very happy to release 3 conference journals on this occasion.
We are today releasing 3 journals which are contributions of all our participants to this conference. IJAIR journal, which has 66 papers as contributions from our delegates, numbered ISSN 2394-3114 with an impact factor of 7.36. And UGC approved care-listed journal with 111 papers, ISSN 2394-3114. We also have 7 papers published in UGC approved scopus numbered ISSN 11006790. Thank you, sir, for your kind and motivating words. Always a pleasure, and it's always motivating to hear from you. And also thank you for releasing the journals.
Thank you.
May I now request Professor Dave O'Gorman, who is joining us all the way from Phnom Penh in Cambodia, to present his paper, Swimming from the Leaky Lifeboat, Crisis Response Strategies for Digital Commerce in a Post-Interventionist Economy. I hope I've got the title right, Professor Gorman.
It's a mouthful, that title. It could have been shortened, certainly. But yes, that's correct.
Thank you. You're close to lunchtime and you're right here with us. Great to have you, sir. You can start.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. And I apologize for the strangeness a little earlier. As I say, we had a power cut, and when I reconnected, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm holding up the whole conference here. But it's definitely my pleasure and honor to be here today with you all virtually Thank you to Dr. Sharma for that introduction. Thank you to Chairman Shetty and to Principal Shetty and to Vice Principal Santosh. And also thank you to Dr. Shashi Panikar of the Economics Club of Mumbai for facilitating my invitation to this conference. Thank you all very much. I have about 25, 30-minute presentation, which I hope will be to your satisfaction. And then hopefully we can have a good question and answer period at the conclusion. I'm not very savvy technically, so please chime in if I've done something wrong. I believe if I go like this, can you all see my presentation now in unlaunched form? Just the screen, just the sort of the start screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We can.
Okay.
We can.
Okay. Great. Terrific. So let's go ahead and get started. So my presentation this morning is going to be about how the coronavirus crisis has impacted what we've always thought of as the new economy. And the argument that I'm going to be making today is that as of this moment, that new economy is henceforth the old new economy, and that all key stakeholders in the world economy and in world economic growth, be they business leaders or policymakers, will have to adapt to what I'm going to refer to as a new economy. Certainly, no one attending today needs to be told that the COVID crisis has presented the world with a time of great challenge. I'll be showing a few statistics that I think make the case that the challenge is even greater than most people have yet realized, because entire modes of business, not just business sectors, not just industries, but entire ways of doing business are going to have to change. And some of them probably won't survive. The traditional business trip, where an individual gets on an airplane, flies to another city, meets with a client or a vendor, and returns home with a signed agreement in his carry-on bags. That entire way of thinking is under great threat right now and will have to change, as we are seeing here this morning. In addition, and I'll have quite a bit to say about this, fiscal and monetary policymakers are going to have to struggle to maintain the effectiveness of their policies. This isn't just because of the science of what we face, in, for example, the possibility of a second wave. It's also because of a series of aggravating factors, some of which will be self-antagonizing, and I'm going to articulate those in a few minutes. Now, the good news is that we have seen over the past decade, we've seen significant growth in what might be thought of as the digital economy. So information technology, e-commerce, commercial information electronics, and information infrastructure. And that growth will obviously only accelerate to the benefit of everyone attending today. But that acceleration will be in a new direction. And neither policymakers nor business leaders are going to be able to rely on established norms for adapting to this new challenge. It's going to take new thinking from the stakeholders and actors in the new economy. First, I thought it might be helpful to set a background, set the table as it existed prior to the crisis. It's easy to forget this because it feels like 100 years ago. But late 2019 saw the global economy in a period of economic slowdown already. And this slowdown had manifested across multiple economic sectors, in particular manufacturing, spending on consumer durables, and world trade. It's also easy to forget that fiscal and monetary authorities had already responded. We'd seen significant reductions in the target interest rates of several of the key economies of the world, central banks infusing liquidity into those economies, and we'd even seen significant fiscal response. Now, what's interesting, especially in hindsight, about that slowdown that we had already seen, is that the traditionally worst effects of such a slowdown had almost completely failed to manifest. Ordinarily, when you see reductions in spending on consumer durables and reductions in manufacturing, especially reductions in trade, ordinarily you see corresponding reductions in consumer sentiment and employment. That didn't happen this time, at least in 2019. And the reason is self-evident. The reason is that those reductions in economic activity were backfilled by continued robust growth in the digital economy. Now, this is probably not easy to read on the scale that you all are able to see it. But what I have here is a chart that I've adapted from the International Monetary Fund's staff paper on the subject. The dotted lines, if you're able to tell which ones those are, the dotted lines show world unemployment rates broken down by advanced economies, emerging economies, and the overall world unemployment rate. And what you can tell from this chart, if nothing else, is that unemployment rates continued to decrease over both 2017, 2018, as well as in 2019. We saw significant reductions in global unemployment rates despite the aforementioned fall off in world trade, consumer durables, and manufacturing. At the same time, the solid lines of the graph show consumer sentiment as measured in the advanced economies of the world, the emerging economies, and the overall world figures for that. And what you can see there is steady increases in consumer sentiment in 2017, 2018, and a stable pattern for consumer sentiment in 2019. The clear conclusion to draw here is that the new economy, the digital economy, was taking up the slack. As I said, all of that sounds like 100 years ago, because in early 2020, the COVID crisis exploded on the public scene. I don't have to tell anyone in attendance here today. And on March 11th, the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. As we all know, the economic and social impacts have exceeded all predictions. I would also argue that some of those economic and social impacts have exceeded our ability to perceive and process them. The event that we are going through right now is clearly without historical precedent. So here are some fun facts just to motivate that idea. In the United States, the Dow Jones 30 Industrial Average, which is a measure of the key stocks in the US equities market, lost a third of its value between 14 February and 23 March. Let me just pause to aerate that. The market capitalization of the 30 most important companies in the United States economy lost 1/3 of its value in a period of about 5 weeks. In India, we saw the BSE fall from 42,250 on 20 January to about 31,000 today. Unemployment rates in both the United States and India hover around 25% officially, and maybe significantly more than that, given the well-known difficulties with measuring unemployment. It's thought by at least one reputable scholar that India may have lost 120 million payroll jobs, and many of those jobs have been lost permanently. Many of them simply won't come back when this is over. Here's my favorite. This is the statistic that always puts this entire thing into context for me personally. It is believed that around the planet, 1.5 billion, billion with a B, students are closed out of conventional attendance in school. Now, this includes both primary and secondary students as well as college students. But when one keeps in mind that most of the world's population is not made up of students, this 1.5 billion figure is doubly arresting. I think we can take it as read that most of the students on the planet are presently closed out of attending school. with repercussions that'll be both far-reaching and difficult to forecast. Now, the fiscal response on the part of the world's policymakers has been improbably laudable. The IMF estimates that $3.3 trillion USD has been devoted to direct fiscal interventions around the world in an attempt to stabilize the economies of the world. It's believed that another $4.5 trillion USD in loans and loan guarantees have been devoted strictly to addressing this crisis. In the United States alone, a commitment has been made equivalent to roughly 11% of GDP. And this is just on the fiscal side. This is just fiscal stimulus designed to stabilize the economy. The monetary interventions have been all the more impressive, albeit difficult to measure. And when combined with those fiscal responses, the table that has been set, the expectation that has been set, is for what is thought of as a checkmark recovery for the world economy. Now, checkmark recovery means that you have a very, very steep recession, followed by a somewhat slower but uninterrupted recovery. In the present context, it's thought that that recovery will take about 6 quarters to manifest overall. This has been projected by the OECD, the Organization for Economic and Community Development, and we see their checkmark recovery pattern in the graph that's on your screen now, with a projection of almost complete recovery completed by the end of 2021. The IMF has projected a checkmark-shaped recovery, which is squeezed down into the right-hand side of this chart. But what you can see is a very swift, very steep recession in 2020 and a somewhat less severe, somewhat less steep recovery in 2021. So the key actors in the area of forecasting have arrived at a kind of default consensus that checkmark recovery is in the offing. And that's problematic. It's problematic for 2 big reasons, one of which is more or less evident, and the other one of which will take a little more articulation. To begin with, as you probably suspected I might say here about checkmark recoveries, we don't really know anything about the present crisis. Scientifically speaking, we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know what a probable second wave will look like. We don't know what the ultimate consequences will be of locking 1.5 billion students out of their conventional classrooms. All of what we have already seen will have lasting repercussions, and those repercussions are very difficult to measure before the fact. That's in some ways the easy part, because policymakers, in their struggle to address these unknowable repercussions, will face unprecedented challenges. The efficacy of conventional stabilization efforts will come under threat from every conceivable side. And I want to spend a few minutes to talk about that. I'm going to refer to the 6 challenges that public policymakers are likely to face. I'm going to refer to them as the credit trap, the equity trap, the exchange rate trap, the real side trap, the intertemporal trap, and the psychological trap. So let's take them in turn. First, the credit trap. Probably the most direct argument to make, and one of the steepest challenges that policymakers will face moving forward, is that you can't increase your stabilization efforts as a policymaker without increasing your public debt load. And that's problematic regardless of whether the country incurring that debt does so internationally, as is the preferred mode in emerging markets, or domestically, as with India and the United States. Domestic public debt can't be forgiven. You can't go to a private bondholder in India, if you're the government of India, and say, hey, you know what? we've decided that in order to perpetuate our recovery here, it would be really peachy if you could forgive this debt for us. Domestically held debt can't be treated that way, leaving only monetization as an available tool when that debt load becomes unsustainable. In addition, those countries that finance their debt internationally have to deal with credit rating and interest cost as consequences. The International Monetary Fund estimates that 50 countries could be at high risk of default. That's a public debt load that exceeds 70% of GDP by the conclusion of 2020. Now, that's an astonishing number when one considers that there are fewer than 200 member nations in the UN. To think that 50 countries around the planet could be classified as high default risks by the end of this year is certainly a statistic that should give every economist and business leader significant pause. The biggest problem is that higher default risk will map directly to higher interest rates. The dynamic there is somewhat out of the scope of a presentation of this length. But basically, supply and demand dictates that if you are a riskier borrower, you must offer a higher rate of return to your lender in order for the lender to go ahead and make the loan. And in the case of public debt, that manifests as higher interest rates. And of course, higher interest rates will make public debt costlier and more difficult to pay back. Now, this is linked directly to the second trap that policymakers will face moving forward, which I've dubbed the equity trap. We live in an era of historically fluid capital markets. And that's problematic in the present context. It's usually beneficial especially for emerging markets, but it's problematic in the present context because an increased risk of public default will precipitate capital flight from those markets that need that capital the most. This will happen as a direct consequence because if you were thinking about buying stocks in a country, you would be less likely to do so if you thought that the public entities in that country were facing imminent default. But it's also indirect because higher interest rates in those countries will also suppress private business investment by making it more expensive for businesses to borrow and expand their business, which will in turn make equity investment in those businesses less attractive. And we've seen this already. Again, the screen is probably not so easy to read, but the key takeaway here is that that really sharp downward sloped line that you can see represents capital flight that we have seen out of emerging markets since January 21st of 2020. We're at about 55 days on this graph, and you can see that the amount of capital flight out of emerging markets has been dramatic and unprecedented. This is going to hamper policymakers' efforts by dampening any subsequent economic recovery in those markets. Next, we have the exchange rate trap. And the exchange rate trap is a manifestation of a simple and durable fact in the world, and that is that the United States dollar is the world's reserve currency, which means that it's the currency that people want to denominate their transactions in, especially in times of worldwide economic uncertainty. The term for this that sometimes gets used is flight to quality. Now, the reason this is problematic for policymakers, especially in other countries, is that this flight to quality will drive up the value of the USD when measured against any other currency out there. And most public debt in the world is denominated in USD. If, for example, Indonesia borrows 60 billion from South Korea, the transaction is denominated in US dollars. And the reason that's problematic is that our debtor nation, Indonesia in this example, faces a larger principal to repay even though they didn't borrow any additional money when the US dollar increases in value. In addition, there is a secondary effect, which is that the falling value of the domestic currency will suppress economic activity in that country, for example, Indonesia. And as a result, the Indonesian government would enjoy smaller tax receipts in consequence, which would also make it more difficult to repay their debt. We also have some unique challenges for policymakers given the geography of the present crisis. Because, of course, the workshop of the world right now is the People's Republic of China. That may not last forever, but it's certainly true right now that the bulk of the world's primary manufacturing value added takes place in China in particular, the country that just happens to have been the most deeply affected, at least in terms of its trade sector. And that's going to disrupt the entire world supply chain, which will have significant contagion for the domestic economies of essentially every other country in the world, and thereby make it much harder for policymakers around the world to respond in the traditional ways to the situation. We also have a trap involving the passage of time, and this takes two forms. The world's primary consumer markets, the United States, North America, Western Europe, happen also to be those markets in the world that are aging the most rapidly, and their demand for goods and services is aging right along with them. But in addition to that, the challenges that I've described already mean that less developed and less liquid policymakers, countries, less developed and less liquid countries will have policymakers who will have much less flexibility if we experience any kind of second wave to speak of, if this problem takes much longer to clarify itself than has been anticipated and budgeted for, then many countries around the world could find themselves with an empty quiver at the moment that their interventions are needed the most. Lastly, we have a gigantic psychological trap. And this isn't as new. This was a problem that first became apparent to the world's policymakers during the Great Depression of the 1930s. The policy can and often is negated, can be and often is negated by people's psychological response to a crisis. We're seeing that with measurable statistics now. We have official reopenings at various places around the world, and what we are able to verify now statistically is that those official reopenings tell us nothing about economic recovery. They simply don't guarantee that people are going to revert to their old behavior patterns. We have hard data on this. In the United States, the state of Georgia reopened in a way that was very highly publicized because of how controversial it was. But in the aftermath of that very highly publicized reopening, the unemployment rate in Georgia has continued to rise rather than going back down as one might have predicted. In Wuhan, China, the malls and department stores, they're all open now. All the malls and department stores have reopened in Wuhan. It's just that they're empty. Nobody's going back inside them. Now, the good news in all of this, you might kind of got to struggle for good news in a situation like this, but there is some. And that is that the digital economy that had already been backfilling our economic slowdown that we saw at the beginning of the presentation will continue to lead the path forward for the coincidence, for the happy coincidence that those activities that we think of as the digital economy are the ones that also happen to be the most robust to the coronavirus crisis. I mean, for example, look at Zoom. Look at what has happened with the stock price of Zoom since all of this started. Here we are all meeting by Zoom, and Zoom is benefiting, albeit left-handedly, from the advent of this crisis. And that's great because it means that the world economy is going to be bolstered and buttressed by these new economic actors. That's the good news. And we have quite a bit of hard data on that as well. In continental Europe, 13% of those surveyed, which is going to be a very big number, 13% of those surveyed reported that they had purchased something online for the very first time in their lives just in the month of April 2020. That's a really big chunk of the people responding to that survey when one stops to consider how few people might even be available to qualify in the first place as having never bought something online before. And it gets even more impressive. In Italy, which was very highly publicized as a country that was very hard hit by this crisis, e-commerce went up 81% in March of 2020, year on year. So the March 2019 figure was 81% smaller than the March 2020 figure for e-commerce in Italy. These are impressive numbers, and they represent really good news, especially for students in programs of study that happen to the economy and its associated labor market. The problem is that that path forward will not take place down a road of accepted modalities. The traditional modalities for the new economy simply aren't going to work moving forward. One of the terms that has come into English vernacular over the last few years is the term gig worker. In the United States, it's a very popular term, and it refers to people who either work primarily or supplement a primary income by freelancing using electronic platforms. So we're talking about Uber drivers, that. The gig economy is going to suffer disproportionately as a result of this crisis. And the reason comes down to very simple risk aversion. In any labor market transaction, you have a demand and a supply. So you have employers that need to hire workers, they're the demand, and you have individuals who hope to become employees, they represent the supply. Neither of those two sides is going to feel as comfortable with a freelance arrangement moving forward. The workers aren't going to feel as comfortable for relatively obvious reasons, mostly to do with benefits and continuity of income through periods of rapid economic change. But even the employers will have to think twice, because continuity of a workforce is going to become disproportionately important to employers moving forward. And we've already seen statistics on this. We have hard data that suggests that the gig economy might be in really big trouble. One statistic that gives me a lot of pause is that the International Labor Organization has forecast that 1.6 billion non-payroll workers of various types will either be temporarily or permanently displaced by the time this is all over. Okay, so what about the big conventional employers of the world? Well, they're going to struggle too. And the reason comes back to the fact that China is the world's workshop. With the world's supply chain thrown into the kind of uncertainty that we're seeing right now, large companies are going to have a lot of trouble reacting in a way that is sufficiently light-footed to move forward from this crisis without a lot of adverse consequences along the way. So the path forward is going to require new thinking by both business leaders and by policymakers. When it comes to business leaders, the old metric is going to be very, very difficult to sustain. We had, up until 2019, we had a conventional dynamic where either companies were very large and traditional on the one hand, or they were disruptors who utilized freelancers and an electronic platform to do business in a much more light-footed way. Neither of those is going to prosper in a permanently unsettled world featuring COVID-19. What's going to happen instead is that employers are going to need to be smaller, they're going to need to be more local, but they're also going to need to be improbably traditional in order to skill up and continue to maintain those high skill levels on a rapid response basis. Now, for policymakers, the prescription is clear. We had three modalities before COVID. We had a policy initiative built around the sugar high of incentivizing consumer spending. We've seen a lot of that. We had a policy initiative incentivized around capital creation. So we can incent factory expansions, we can incent new IPOs of stock shares and so forth. And we had a policy initiative that was built around the idea of incentivizing labor on a purely headcount driven basis. How many people did you hire as a result of the check that we wrote you last time? None of those three strategies are going to address the present challenge because all three of them will be subject to the traps that I previously articulated. You can't incent capital in a world where the capital can just squirt out from under it and go to another country where the debt load is smaller. And the reason that's a big problem for those who would incent capital is because the countries most likely to benefit from fiscal policy making that's built around incentivizing capital are also by definition the ones that will be least attractive and most susceptible to capital flight. You can't incent consumer demand because it's inefficient. You get these big pops in retail activity and then they die away almost immediately, and then you've taken on a bunch of debt. So you're financing a current account recovery with long-term liabilities. And you can't incent raw headcounts because you have no way of knowing whether the people that have been hired are going to have what it takes to adapt and stick around. So what's necessary instead is a very clear prescription for the way forward. Focus on the part of policymakers and business leaders is going to have to be trained exclusively on much more aggressive human capital development, but human capital development that emphasizes traditional employment settings, that emphasizes traditional employment. Now, I have somebody with their hand up, and I don't know what to do. So maybe since the presentation is essentially complete, why don't I go ahead and finish, and then that way the question and answer will require less technical know-how from me. Basically, my last message is that only those economies that have nimble workforces that are skilled up, but which emphasize the continuity of conventional employment relationships, are likely to prosper. We're looking at a new economy as opposed to the old new economy. Now, everyone in attendance today knows that we face a historic challenge, and that historic challenge is global. By the time this is all over, everyone on Earth will be disrupted by COVID-19. But that's got a huge silver lining in its tail, because history has shown that only during the times of biggest crisis can we adapt the biggest new ways of thinking. Small bore times do not foment or tolerate big ideas. It takes a big crisis for big ideas to gain traction. This is our worldwide summons, a redoubled commitment to high human capital investment by both business leaders and policymakers, with an emphasis on the kind of continuity that will be necessary to adapt rapidly to changing circumstances and new challenges. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Professor Gorman. I think we can take some questions. Nidhi ma'am, Tushar sir, John sir, if you are ready.
Yes, ma'am. And also a request to the participants, if you could post your questions in the Q&A tab. We already have received 3 questions. So any more questions, you can put it there. Professor Gorman will be answering it. Yes, ma'am. We can start off with the questions. Over to Nidhi, ma'am.
Should I be hearing something now? I have no audio at the moment.
There is no audio, sir. We'll just connect with Nidhi, ma'am. Till the time, sir,
Okay.
can I say, take the first question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Nidhi, ma'am is online. So
All right. Okay, so the question to you is, the country is spending a large part of its GDP to stimulate local businesses and support the unemployed. The stimulus plan even larger than what post World War II. They have huge reserves of saving, yes, but when neighbors next door in European Union are unable to restart their economies, can Germany stimulus alone help improve the situation of European Union? This question is by Sitara Madam.
Okay. Can our hosts repeat each question for me? I had a little difficulty hearing the audio from the question. And also, I think that'd be good for everybody anyway, just so that we hear the question repeated and framed by our hosts, and then I'll just dive right in.
John sir, can you read the question, repeat the question? Your voice is clear.
okay, so the question was about Germany, right, Nidhi, ma'am?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. So Shashi Panikar has a question that Germany is spending a large part of its GDP to stimulate local business and support the unemployed. A stimulus plan even larger than the Marshall Plan post World War II. They have huge reserves of savings, yes, but when the neighbors next door in the European Union are unable to restart their economies, can Germany's stimulus alone help improve the situation in the European Union? Sitara Panikar. Okay,
Well,
sir.
that was a terrific question. That's a great question. So the answer that I would offer is in 2 parts. First, I think it's important that we all take a moment to recognize that Germany is one of the few countries in the world whose fiscal and monetary policies are probably largely robust to many of the challenges and traps that I articulated earlier. We might think of Germany as an exception that proves the rule in terms of their versatility and the efficacy of their policies. So I think that's important. The second part is that it remains to be seen, and that might be disconcerting. That might be a pause, a moment for pause. It remains to be seen whether the efforts of countries like Germany can benefit their neighbors or just add new strain to their relations with their neighbors. And that will come down to monetary policy as much as anything. If the policies of the European Central Bank are engineered in such a way as to propagate the beneficial actions of Germany to its neighbors. And that's a relatively straightforward thing to do if you feel like you have the political will. That's going to be a relatively slack monetary policy with credit incentives that are targeted to Germany's neighbors. Then I think you could see a situation where a very effective stabilization effort in Germany has benefit for the surrounding nations, for its neighbors both inside the EU and adjacent. But that is not an automatic guaranteed outcome of the situation. And we've already seen that. It's thought by many scholars that the Brexit uproar and the eventual vote on the part of the citizens of the United Kingdom to leave the EU was an indirect consequence of European Union policies that favored certain labor markets, especially that in Germany, Switzerland, and other countries that are similar, and encouraged migrant workers to move to those markets, who then sought to benefit from the Schengen zone, and created the impression on the part of some British citizens that individuals were moving to Europe in order to take advantage of more lucrative and more generous fiscal and monetary policies in those countries. So the problem that we face, and this isn't unique to the EU, is that tools will either bring people together or drive them apart based on things that we can't know, based on political factors, psychological factors, built-in biases, parochialism. All of this is outside the scope of an economic forecast. And therefore, we find ourselves facing a situation where the greatest unknown is probably the one with the most likelihood to act on the path forward.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can we move to the next question?
Yes, of course.
So the next question is from Dr. Mukta Pote from Department of Economics, SK Somaya College, Mumbai. So the question is, what expected time to repair world economy post COVID-19, and what should be effective intervention of monetary and fiscal policy to repair world economy? And sir, I would like to aware your view about Indian economy. Over to you, sir.
Okay, great. That's a terrific question. The first part of the response, I think, comes down to exactly what we might mean and understand and agree to when we use the phrase post-COVID-19. And this gets back to some of the business about the psychological trap that I discussed earlier. I personally feel like one of the reasons people have not returned to their old modes of behavior, even in places where their economies have quote unquote reopened, is because folks don't really know whether or not this whole situation is over, or even what the word over might imply. In the United States, we have a very high profile clinician, a public health policymaker by the name of Dr. Anthony Fauci. And Dr. Fauci has said repeatedly, we will have COVID-19 later this year. He has gone so far as to confidently predict what's being described as a second wave of COVID-19. Now, if moving forward, if COVID-19 becomes a facet of our lives in a way that looks less like SARS and looks more like the flu in terms of its durability, then I think all bets are off. I think the ability of a trained economist to say, here's what's going to be necessary and here's how long it's going to take is out the window at that point, especially since past pandemics have been characterized by a scary first wave and then a pause and then a much more robust second wave. That's been true with every pandemic that we know anything about historically. I think if that pattern repeats itself here, I think we're in for a very, very bumpy ride. But the second part of the question, what's going to be necessary on the part of policymakers, I think that comes down to a heavy emphasis on targeted human capital investment. If it is true the way it seems to be true, that the digital economy is going to save us, that's going to require a skilled up workforce. Now, we've been saying that for a generation. We've been saying that people are going to have to skill up since I was a kid. I remember being 13, 14 years old and having personal computers brought into our classrooms. My college attendance, my first college that I attended, was Clarkson University in Potsdam, New York, which at the time was incredibly proud of itself for saying that every incoming student is issued a personal computer. Clarkson was one of the first schools in the world to do that, and all their literature publicized that. Now, this was in 1986, when having a personal computer was a really big deal. So in some ways, it would be easy to kind of jade ourselves to this idea that skilling up is what it's going to take, and that targeting human capital investment is what policymakers are going to have to do. It'd be easy to say, yeah, it's going to take more skills. It's going to take policies that are targeted to greater skills. But the new economy that we've grown used to is simply not going to be good enough. We're going to need to skill up in ways that are much more targeted and put much more emphasis on continuity. That can be done on both a policy side, on a fiscal policy side, and it can also be done by the central banks. Central bank policymakers are getting into the lending business now to a depth and breadth that we have never seen before. Monetary policymakers don't usually loan money directly, and we're seeing that now. So I think that, clearly the path forward is going to be, hey, what is being done in this business to encourage continuity of high human capital investment? And I think that's, if COVID ended tomorrow, if there wasn't a single new case and there wasn't a single new death, we're probably looking at 6 to 8 quarters before economic activity returns to what we might think of as normal. But I don't think COVID-19 is going away tomorrow either.
The next question, Professor Gorman, is from Shivmurthy Gupta, who's asking a specific India question and says, what can India do in order to attract foreign companies into India, considering the situation with China?
Okay, that is both a terrific question and a reminder to me that I didn't answer part of the previous one, which is to comment on the path forward for India in particular. Now, what's interesting to me about India, it seems to me that the very dynamic that I was structuring for the whole world applies even more so to India, where we have a good news, bad news proposition in terms of responding to this crisis. The good news is that few countries in the world have committed themselves and their economies to responding and adopting digital technologies like India. I mean, when people use the phrase global economy, India is one of the first places they're thinking of when they do that. And that, by the way, you may or may not know this as a participant in today's conference, that is doubly true in the West. If you use the phrase global economy in Chicago, Illinois, the first 2 things people are going to think of are China for manufacturing and India for what we've come to refer to as outsourcing, information technology, customer service, those sorts of activities. So that's the good news. India is on the sharp end of the wedge already. It won't be necessary for India to reallocate a lot of their educational resources. That's the good news. The bad news is that India is going to face a significant challenge in terms of redefining its relationship with the rest of the world. Because, as I've indicated earlier in the presentation, I don't think that outsourcing and freelancing and gig working are going to do it moving forward. I think that it's going to take much more continuity. And I think that labor demand is going to place a much higher premium on continuity. And I think that that's going to be the key challenge. Can India position itself as an agent of labor market continuity rather than positioning itself as an agent of transitory, contractual, high-tech employment, as has been very successful for India in the past? The other issue that India is going to face is that India is primarily a domestic debt financing country. We're going to be looking at a situation with a lot of public debt in India that is almost exclusively financed by domestic creditors. And that's going to mean that debt restructuring by having high-level meetings with outfits like the World Bank and the IMF just isn't going to be as efficacious as it might be for some other country whose situation is otherwise similar. And so what that could present us with is the challenge of highly increased inflation rates. We could be looking at monetizing a significant amount of public debt, and in turn, we could be looking at very high inflation rates. Now, by very high, one must also remember that we're talking relative terms rather than absolute terms. I don't think that the inflation rate in India is ever going to be historically high again, because I don't think it's ever going to be historically high anywhere. I think liquidity is just too mobile these days. But relatively speaking is all it takes. A relatively high inflation rate will suppress equity investment in India and result in just the kind of capital flight that we've been worrying about here this morning. So the challenge is going to be, how do you service all this debt? And the answer is, you service it by spending it smarter. You service it by not financing headcounts and not financing demand stimulation and not financing capital incentives. You do it by spending that money on targeted human capital that you know will then grow your economy and generate the new tax revenue necessary to finance that new debt.
John sir, is that all the time we have for?
Yes, ma'am. For those participants whose questions have not been answered, we request you if you could mail it to us so we can take it forward to Professor Dave. So because we have a next session also by Dr. Sergeant Matthew. So I think, ma'am, we can end it over here, the question and answer session, and then we can move forward.
Thank you very much for hosting me. It's been my pleasure, and I would be happy to answer any questions we didn't get to. So by all means, please send those along, and I will answer them on a customized basis, one at a time. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for being generous with your time. I will not pretend to understand all the intricacies of the world economy that you have discussed, but there are some things that we are all aware of in terms of your emphasis on the fiscal as well as how society and policymakers need to respond to the psychological and social conditions, that we all need to be prepared, that these are unprecedented times that call for unprecedented responses, that we need a huge amount of introspection, looking at our own traditional skill sets, and of course that challenge of constantly upskilling ourselves, if I may use that word. So you've also painted the picture of students who are going to be out of school. So many of us here today are teachers. It is indeed depressing to think that a flu, which some world leaders now refer to as just a little flu, could actually set us back by so much.
Yeah.
These are depressing times, but these are also perhaps, this is perhaps, like you mentioned, a great time to look inwards and find out how best we can deal, what new technology and what new systems we can generate to deal with that situations and our societies.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Gorman, for joining us all the way, for bearing with us with all the technical issues that we've had now and then.
Thank you all too, and thank you for bearing with me.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I would now like to request our keynote speaker, Dr. Sergeant Matthew, who is a Registrar of Examination Evaluation, Alliance University, Bangalore, to kindly address the gallery. Dr. Matthew, please.
Yeah, good morning. I hope all of you can hear me and see the slides also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
we will go on. I have 30 minutes of time, correct? I will go on for 25 minutes and then we will take up the questions. That's the format which we are following. I'm open for questions at any stage, but since it's a digital format, I wish we will take the questions towards the end. We will start. First of all, thank you for giving this opportunity. Very important. Remember this. This was a topic which they have decided, the college have decided much before the COVID days. And in that stage, the digital era, the definition of digital era before COVID and after COVID is something else, is exponentially different. And I will explain this. And I have 25, 30 minutes. 30 minutes, listen to what I am saying. It is incredible. There are times of change, a lot of change is basically happening. And redefining business in digital era. What am I going to say? I am just trying to explain how these digital technologies are going to change the business in a huge manner. In short, what I am saying is leading into the future, what you need to know today. You are moving into the future. What is that you should know? It's something else which you should know after this COVID. That is what I will describe. Okay, listen. We will move on. I'm just putting one slide. This is basically the extension from what the principal was saying also. This is what you see, the fourth industrial revolution which is happening right now. You can see that the 1700s steam engine, electricity came, then came computing, and now it is industrial revolutions. Everything getting digital, correct? Autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, blockchains, IoT, everything getting digital. It is almost taking away the jobs from each and every one of us. And how is this going to basically change the business world? That's a question which we have to address. By the end of this 25, 30 minutes, you should be able to clearly understand how is that going to change. I hope all of you are with me. I'm just saying, going through it a little fast. I have few more minutes. Listen here. The world economy itself is changing. This simple slide shows the world stock of data. Can you see this? Can you see there are two colors there? The light blue color, the analog data, and the other one, the digital data. It is not just that 95% of the world data is almost digital. Not just digital, it is even connected to the internet. It can talk to each other. Remember, each one of you, a few years down the line, each one of you who is sitting inside the chair, that chair is talking to the manufacturers of the chair. It is talking to my insurance company. What is the impact which I'm putting it on my backbone? Am I leaning too much? It is collecting the data up to that extent. Some of the companies are doing it. Car companies are doing it. Every company is almost like a data-driven company. Even my university, which I represent, Alliance University, the first private university in South India, correct? I'm a part of this university for quite some time. In fact, I am telling my management, we should basically take our university as a data-driven company. We should take this as a data-driven company. Remember that? What I repeat. How much data can we collect from each one of them and capitalize on that is the key. Correct? That's the world which we are heading. Every company is trying to convert its business strategies with respect to data. I will explain this as it moves forward. Just moving a little more forward. Correct? You can see this slide. Can you see this? 1980s, it was PCs. Then came internet, social media, then the various platforms. 2000, you are right now here. From here onwards, I can't draw on this board. It's an exponential curve. Can you see that exponential curve? That set of technologies which is going to change the business productivity. This is almost two axes, time and the business productivity. You are right now in 2020, a set of new technologies, IoT, robotics, blockchain, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, coming into business, every aspect of business, and improving the productivity of the business in an exponential rate, not linear. So far, business have seen only linear growth with respect to technology. Technology came in, business productivity improved linear. Now it is not just the business. It is almost like every sector's daily life productivity is going to improve. Why is it? The technologies which is powering artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain, IoT, quantum computing. I hope you're following me. I hope you're following me. Remember this, this is 2020. From here onwards, the technologies will rule business and daily life, every functions of business. Correct. We will move on. I'll move to the next slide, which explains, this is basically taken from Deloitte Press. Can you see the slide? I hope from wherever, whichever format you are seeing it, you can see that. Look at that, there are two axes. One is time, second is the rate of change. Can you see the technology change which is happening exponentially and the business productivity which is linear? Any business who is not able to fill that gap, can you see that yellow bar? And that's a gap which you see. If we are education institutes, correct? Technology is changing. So, there are people using it everywhere. WhatsApp is used by even my maid, in fact. Yeah, but is the business using it? Is the business productivity improving based on that technology? It is not. There is a gap, and this gap is wide open. This gap, who is able to fill this gap is the winner. No, you see, the colleges or the universities can be 100 years or correct, like the ones which I'm talking about. Correct. Look at those universities. They have, every university have a travel time if you can't gap, plug this gap. Every business has this gap, and you can see the stock markets, which is basically looking into it. Anyone who is having a technological framework in their business is a winner. Correct? That is what you see in the future. I hope all of you are following me. I am looking at some of the responses. I can just moving on to the next stage. That's a winner. What is that I am saying? The business productivity and the technological change. There is a huge gap. Who is able to fill the gap is a winner. If you look at a little more deeper, there are three levels. Technology is moving on. Individuals are ready to come up very close to that. You can see the curve which is basically closing there. Business is much lower. Governments and public policies are much below that. That's a gap. That is what is really happening. This is a big gap. Even if every government says digital India, we have to make it. Public policies are not gearing up for that, except few countries. Correct? I know everyone is criticizing China for whatever they are doing, etc. But look at some of these countries are gearing up policies for that. South Korea, a set of countries is doing that. They are trying to make sure they are using the technology platform to create public policies and close the gap. Because the gap, bigger the problems, correct? And individuals are closing these gaps pretty well. Business can't do that. That's the worst part of it. Look at education institutions. Are the education institutions able to fill this gap? Yeah, you can see that. You take your own organizations, your own business units, or your own colleges, and who is the one who is going to win? Who can basically fill this gap? That's the first point which I have to say. I'm saying there is a huge gap which is building up. Correct? Technology is changing. 2020 new sets of technology. There is a gap which is there. One who is able to fill this gap is basically going to be the winner. I'm putting the next slide. That is where the disruption is going to happen. These are exponential organizations. These are exponential organizations in business. It can be in medicine, it can be in healthcare, it can be in legal systems. Who knows? A set of disruptions which is bound to happen every sector. IBM Watson is an artificial intelligence agent. They can replace the total legal system of a country with few. You remember all the cases which is solved in few seconds. That's the power of artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc. I'm not going very deep into each of this technology. There is a good chance of disruption which is bound to happen. And who is going to be the winner? Who is exploiting this gap? That's the first point which I have to explain. I hope each one of you is very clear on what I'm saying. I'll move on. We'll move to the next major technologies and why you should bet on this exponential technologies. This is a quote from Jack Welch. If the rate of change on the outside is greater than the rate of change inside, the end is near. Remember, very simple. The rate of change of outside is faster than the rate of change inside. Take our own organizations. Look at any technology. It can be a very simple technology like WhatsApp. What is WhatsApp doing to communications. Is the change incorporated within the system? If the rate of change outside is faster than inside, there is a trouble times for the business. It can be artificial intelligence, it can be blockchain, it can be quantum computing. All those are major technologies which are bound to change. And just moving on, I hope each one of you is very clear on what I'm saying. And why this change is happening is simply because of the technology cost curve. I'm going to say, first I said there is a gap. Now I'm basically saying about the technology component. And look at this technology components. If there is one component where the price is dipping, can you see this curve? The price is dipping. Computing Moore's law transistors, after 18 months, the power of computing basically doubles. That is what Moore's law does. Similarly, there are a set of laws. Data storage, look at 1 terabyte is almost in a small hard disk. I heard a transom is basically coming with a micro SD card which can store 1 terabyte of data. Yesterday's newspaper. Digital imaging, the quality of images which is produced by computer systems are exponential, in fact. And that is what you see. Networking, you can see the cost of storage everywhere. Technology cost is the only cost which is coming down. And that is the power which you have to capitalize on it. Look at every car company, Tesla. Correct. Look at every minute they are rolling out, capturing the data from this. I hope each one of you are clear on what I'm saying. Time to reach 50 million users. Time to take one technology to a big mass, 50 million users. I hope you understood. 50 million, 1 million, 10 lakhs, 5 crore people. Telephone took 75 years. You see, automobile 62. Look at Facebook took 4 years. Internet took 7 years. Facebook took 4 years. Pokemon Go game took just 19 days. Reliance Jio is not bad in terms of it, just few days, in fact, less than 50 days if I'm not wrong. Look at, for Reliance Jio to reach 50 million users, it took just few days, less than 100 days. Look, that's the power. This technologies has to be, that is why Facebook is running behind Ambani's to basically put that money. Look at the last 1 month, 4 or 5 major investment in Jio. What is that? They bet, they know. In fact, some of the reports says that the Jio part, the technology part of Reliance is much bigger than the petroleum part or the Reliance retail business, which they have spent a lot of crores into it. And that's the valuation. Why is Facebook interested in Reliance? Simply because the power of the technology which is driving. That's the key. That is winning. Look at it. I'm just moving it. Technology adoption S-curve. Look at the technology adoption curve and the price dipping, the installed base increasing. You can see that. Can you see that orange color? The price is decreasing. This is the absorption, the technology adoption curve for color TV. And as the price decreases, people will buy more. Correct? Every technology is going through this phase, and that we have seen it very clearly. Correct? I'm just moving on. I hope all of you are clear on what I'm saying. We will move on. Look at what is happening. Biotech, nanotech, infotech. Few of the major technologies which is making radical changes. Life expectancy is more than doubled since 1900. Integrated circuits 30,000 times faster than 1960s. Look at the power to compute is 30,000 times faster than 1960s. You look at that. Solar panels 250 times cheaper than 1975. Remember 1975? Every year it is coming down. I feel the entire design system have to change because nobody have to design. When we did engineering, we designed for power consumption. See, the power is the power cost is almost zero. You have to think on that lines. DNA sequencing 1 lakh times cheaper than 2000 watts. That is what is happening. Biotech, nanotech, infotech, changing the digital business era. Correct? And that is what I have to say next. We will move on. Look at this. Again, a small, similar type of graph, time progress. Most of us have this feeling, correct? What do you think we will end up in the future? This is a common statement I used to say with my boards. I have no ideas after 5 years, Alliance University, what is the future, how it will turn up. It can be totally something else. We may be a software company which is giving learning solutions. ICICI Bank, Kamath, way back, it's 15 years back, I've said, we are almost like a technology company. We are also into banking. That's it. Correct? That's the way every company is looking at it. Look at Geo. Geo is, I know they are basically coming up with their own universities. Geo will be in every sector. Geo will be in films, every company, digital software company can basically go. Correct? That happens with Google. Look at Google. Google knows what people are browsing, where, when, what, etc. Google can easily come up after 10 years and say to SBI, or not even after 5 years to SBI and say, give me 30% of the shares of SBI. I will put your money, I will give the data leads to you. You basically try to sell it. Or they will say, I will go to HDFC Bank. HDFC Bank may even give up to 50% of the stakes just to collect the data of what people buy. So what people are searching for, which, where, house, what rate, everything. They know it. That is what is bound to accept. That is what I am saying, that what you can actually end up in the future is something else. It is totally something else. I hope all of you are clear. I can't see any, I'm just putting it, predictions driving winning or losing. It is based on what is our knowledgeable future, which you feel you are going to. And based on that, you basically, what is the knowledgeable future? Look at the report which is done by a Microsoft last few years back. How long does your current business models have left to run? This is based on the data which they have collected from the top level management. Correct? 46% said that less than 5 years, everything what you have seen is going to change. 14% says that it can be less than 2 years. They have no idea. Correct? They know this business model won't survive. Every business model, look at automobile companies. Correct? The business models have to change. It may be a renting, it may be driverless, it may be an app which is basically deciding, all that is going to change in the future. That's the future. Okay, listen here, I'm just taking through, I'm not rushing through what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a big gap. I hope all of you are clear. Then I have said that there are many technologies which is basically coming, which I've basically given it out. Now I am taking it from the essence of the word digital, DNA of a digital master. There are two axes. I believe in these graphs, X and Y. X is leadership capability, and second is the Y axis, which is digital capability. Leadership capability, digital capability. Correct? The how and what. Successful transformation depends upon how much the firms can bring this digital leadership and digital capabilities into it. And you can divide this into 4 quadrants. You should know how to digitally lead, and you should have the digital capability to expand. If you have this two, and if you are in the top right-hand corner, you are a winner. This you try to plot it. How is your leadership capability in terms of digital leadership capabilities? How is your digital capability to manage the organization? That's the key. That is what winning is. If you put it together, you can classify it as beginners, conservative, passionate, and digital masters. And that's the 4 quadrants. If you are that's the 4 quadrants which you have. Any organization who is into the right-hand corner is the winner. Correct? You can see it. Look at some of the sectors. Top right-hand corner, retail, banking, high technologies. They are using technology to the best extent. Retail industry, banking, mobile banking. I've never gone to the bank in the last 5 years. Correct? Some of the sectors are very traditional, consumer packaged goods. To a certain extent, education is also, off late it has changed because of after this COVID. Otherwise, we were also much more traditional. Correct? We were also in the beginner's quadrant. It is starting to change. Everyone wants to be in the top right-hand corner. Can you see that? The top right-hand corner, that is what everyone wants to. That's the key. That is winning. You have to be there. Digital masters. I'm just skipping one of the slides to make it correct. I'm just going back. Listen to this one. A little more complex diagram. Correct? Can you see the color codes? I hope this is a pretty broad slide. Can you see the first blue part? I am not using a whiteboard to do this. That is why I am explaining it. Correct? Can you see the blue part? Social mobile, internet, social mobile cloud analytics. That's the technology. I repeat, internet, social mobile analytical cloud. I will simply say it as SMAC. SMAC, social media, mobile technologies, analytics, and cloud computing, which is of course using internet. That's a backbone. That's the backbone for every business. Out of that, you can see the green color, a lot of technologies have come up. 3D printing, Internet of Things, cognitive, nano, blockchain, genomics, drones. Because of that, the set of business activities are going to change. Aging, and the social impact is going to be something else. People are going to live more, technological unemployment, the changing notion of work, fall in working populations, everything. Business impact of that. And you see cyber warfare, the money 2.0, artificial general intelligence, transportation is going to change. This is a report which is taken from Sophie Diana. In her report she says 4 major technologies: social media, mobile, analytical technologies, analytics and SMAC, social, mobile, analytics and cloud. Look at the power of cloud computing. Look at each of these factors. Amazon Web Services, power of cloud computing. They are giving services free to everyone now, up to a particular period. You can use, I am browsing at a speed which is almost like 1 terabytes per second, which I'm not even paying at all. Using the power of cloud. Google is coming up with Google Cloud platforms. Every company in the business world have to capitalize on it. Softwares are basically made for that. That's the key. That is winning. Are you with me? I will take the questions to what am I saying? I'm saying that there is a gap, technology is coming up, the cost of technology is coming down, and new sets of business models are evolving. In short, what am I saying? There is a disruption. There is a digital disruption. Digital disruption is real. Expect a smack in your face. If you are not prepared, you are bound to get that hit. Ready to take on that hit. There is no meaning in saying that, correct, we are big. Look at what happened to Kodak. Correct? Kodak was the master. They invented digital photography and they were thrown out of the business simply on a technology which they invented. The board rejected digital photography and everybody in the world is using digital. Correct? The technology which was invented by this company, the company went bankrupt. You know what happened to digital. That's the same scenario. In fact, what am I saying? Expect this smack to come to each one of us. That's the problem. That's bound to happen. That's a challenge which we have to face it. Who is your Uber? Look at what Uber is doing. Airbnb, Tesla, Spotify, all these companies is going to change. Look at what Byju's is doing. What is Coursera doing? Each one of you think. Correct. Look at what is the courses in Coursera compared with the traditional universities. Who is better fitting in? I doubt whether these Stanford, Berkeley's, even the top-notch 1,000-year-old, years-old universities will survive in the future. How can they take on these Coursera's? Look at, you should see some of these courses. AI for everyone. Some of the courses are taken by 50 lakh users. That's it. During this period of lockdown, pretty exciting. I didn't know the depth of the subjects. I got this kind of a time during this lockdown period. That is what we have to be prepared. That is how do we take on this digital disruptions. Correct? I hope we are basically coming close to the time. This is the digital disruption. World's largest taxi company, Uber, owns no taxi. I hope you understood. Airbnb, largest provider, no real estate. Look at Taj with the Oyo rooms. Oyo is a kid, Ritesh Agarwal. Taj, hundreds of years. Oyo has more number of rooms than Taj. Look, can you imagine? Alibaba has zero inventory. Zero inventory. They do this. Netflix owns no cinemas. Largest distributor. Society One, the biggest bank, no actual money. They don't do. Look at what cryptocurrencies the blockchain will do. Wait and watch. It will be something else. we have to wait and watch. This digital disruptions has already happened before COVID. Some of us may not have felt it, but that's a killer. I don't think even the currencies will take its own levels using the crypto formats. In fact, this is what I'm saying. Every company is a software company. I repeat, what am I saying? Every company is a software company. Every business is a software business. Align your strategies for that. If you can't align it, you are out of business. Look, these are numbers. JP Morgan has more number of programmers than Google Alphabet. Number of programmers. JP Morgan, a financial institution, a consultant, they have more number of programmers than the tech companies. That's the way. Every company is getting merged. The great convergence. Mobile, can you see the slides? Banking, insurance, healthcare, retail, mobility, search, analytics, media, education, all combined together. That is 2020 to 2030. You have to be prepared for that. If you are not prepared, your business is lost. You cannot survive. Take it from me, take it in writing. You cannot survive. And this has to be, everything has to be clubbed in. That is why every organization has to be a data-driven tech company. Look at it. I'm coming to close towards the later part. You can see 1980s. Can you see this? Largest companies globally by market cap. Look at this. What is common? 1980s, 1990s, 2000, 2010s, 2018. This is the latest numbers which I have. Very few 1980s. You see, where is IBM? See, very few companies did move on to from 80s to 90s, 90s to 2000. You can see that very few. And you see 19, 20, etc. It's only tech companies. Look at the recent rise in tech companies. Apple, Microsoft, Google, all Alibaba, JP, everything is almost like a tech company. That is what I'm saying. Get excited. That's the business world which you have to enter in. I will move on. I've just few more slides, just moving to, what am I saying? The future is no longer just an extension of the past. This is the common thing which I've been saying continuously. You cannot plot your future based on your past. Correct? Correct? It's something else. Present is something else. Future is totally something else. Google's chairman, previous chairman, Eric used to say he has no idea where the future business world is heading towards. He has no idea. Google chairman, the Alphabet chairman says that, then what is that we know? That is the business world. How is blockchain going to restructure education? Correct. I am also the registrar at Talents. We are formatting on how we can bring in technology into blockchains, into the university education system. Radical. I have few consultants who come and met me, made their initial rounds of discussion just before, or some time back, in fact. You can see that set of new ball game. Everything radically going to change. Remember, I've been saying about this term blockchain. What is a blockchain? An open book where all the world's data is captured, which is foolproof. Internet, where data is stored, where no data is corrupted. That's the power. That will change the business world. Right now, what do you see is business is at the center, digital is at the sidelines. In the future, digital is the core, business will be a part of it. That's the way, correct? From where we are and where you are basically moving. It is a big race and be prepared for it. Your digital case, there is a lot of risk, there is a lot of opportunity. You have to basically map that. That's the key. If you can't do that, you lost it, in fact. The key for the success. Now I am coming towards the end of my presentation. If you have to be successful, this is what you have to do. It is not just an IT department functions. The whole department, the management have to believe. First is management, correct? Yeah, they should have just good collaborations from every individual. Not just the work of an individual, not an IT champion shop. Clarity in the goals of the people, that is very important. Experiment, be agile, take on risks, ready to fail, fail as fast, move forward. That's the key for the success in this digital transformation era. There are a lot of challenges also. The prices are coming down. What you divide a strategy one day, next day something else basically comes down, etc. That is what basically happens in most of the businesses. Can you see this? Less than 1% of the data in business is analyzed and turned into benefits. SAP is an enterprise ERP company. They are a company which makes enterprise softwares. One of the biggest companies, correct? They are the market leaders in business softwares right now, enterprise softwares. You can see that the SAP itself says that 1% of data in business is analyzed. Look at it, correct? In examination department, we have thousands of lot of data in the last few years, which we have captured, stored it in paper-based systems and partially in electronic format. What percentage of this data can be capitalized for analytical? I can easily analyze each and every faculty based on the marks which they put, everything. Based on the platforms which we can easily analyze every student. I can map each student who is sitting in my class. Where are they looking? What are they looking? Even remotely, I can find out of all these participants who is interested in what up to what extent. There are technologies like brain-computer interaction systems which can take the data straight from your brain. Neuralink, Elon Musk is working on a project. Get the data straight from the brains. That is the extent. Okay, listen, we will move on. I hope I am not crossing the time. 90% of the CEOs believe the digital economy will impact their industry. 15% is ready to are executing on a digital strategies. This is MIT's report, MIT's B School's report slots. This is what it is. So what is how are you going to take it digitally? That's a big question. Be prepared to take it. There is a big era, there's a big change which is happening, and each one of us has to be prepared to take on this major changes which is happening. I hope I have, is that clear? And that's a big world which each one of us have to enter, correct? If you can't understand the new world of digital, fire yourself. That's the way. Build an executive team that is digital first. When problems comes, first solution has to be digital. There should be a digital guy who can think on the digital crowds. How can this platform be used? Make sure there's a techie on the board of directors. If the board has a low digital IQ, the company will have a low digital IQ. This is the reports of Forrester. Okay, I am waiting for questions. I hope all of you are clear. I will sum it up. What is that I have done? I started by saying, yeah, this is a great thing, correct? Redefining business in the digital era. There is a big transformation which is happening. And then I said about the gap which is happening, correct? Yeah, the gap, then the technologies which are coming, how are these technologies going to come, the cost is going to come, there are major technologies, and how we have to be getting prepared for that. Correct? I am waiting for these questions. I hope all of you are very clear on what I have said. Yeah, correct. Waiting for the questions.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Matthew. Before we start with the question answer session, I would quickly like to take the opportunity and acknowledge the presence of our collaborating institutions, LVH College, Nasik, and Saraswat College, Goa. They are here with us. Thank you for joining. And I would like Professor John Menezes to now please put forward the questions.
Okay, Dr. Sajan, we have a few questions, and due to time constraints, we'll be taking a few. So the first question is by Mr. Shivmurthy Gupta. So his question is, the next age of technology, but India is lacking behind in digital literacy. What could be done to make digital literacy and technology accessible to all at low cost?
Okay, listen. Yeah, I will again repeat. See, digital literacy, you remember, you ask Alexa, correct? It is simple voice interface. You can ask Alexa in your in your local languages. That will solve the problems. You don't have to be that digitally literate to use the next generation platforms. India has this drawback of digital literacy right now. I don't think in the coming years this will be a major problem. Correct? Simply because look at how people are using WhatsApp or YouTube. Correct? Look, after the Geo's release, even the cost of Alexa will come down. Every house will have almost like an Alexa equivalent device where you can ask anything. What is the weather? Not just what is the weather, correct? Which is the best course, which is basically suited for me from Coursera. Can be a simple question. It can be as simple as that. So the digital literacy won't be a major factor as it is right now, is my take. There are different views on this question also. I hope he is clear in my answer. If not, you can still get back to me.
Okay, thank you, sir. So
Yeah.
the next question is from Dr. Niranjan Shetty. So he is, can you throw some insight on the flip side if there is any business organizations filling technological gap as it is too wide? Will it have any other implications such as downsizing or right sizing?
Correct. Look at it, very simple. There are problems. I'm not saying that it is not without any problems. See, the key factor for, say, for example, there are technologies like 5G. I know fifth generation mobile networks, 5G, which is 100 times faster than 4G. Correct? Quantum computing, not the binary computing, quantum computing, blockchain, etc. All those technologies are new. If you are trying to upgrade it to the next level systems, you have to put money into blockchain. Correct? To put money into a blockchain, these are technologies which are basically coming. We don't know what are the implications. It's a big risk for any business to jump into that. And that risk, is it worth taking it? Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it is not. If the companies are too excited to put money into some of these technologies, they can be bankrupt also. I don't want to name few companies. There are a lot of Indian companies who are pretty excited about the technology. You know Skype, which is very successful in voice calls. Before Skype, there was a company which is floated by Sabir Bhatia. Sabir Bhatia is the creator of Hotmail. He created voicemail, which was much before the technology. The company lost. Sabir Bhatia, after Hotmail, nobody knows about it. Correct? You are putting money onto a technology which has not even matured. Skype came at the right time, capitalized on it. Before Paytm, there was NGPay. NGPay was a very popular mobile application payment system. Nobody knows about the system. They almost had all the features. These kinds of drawbacks are there. I know there are health concerns. Correct? People getting digitally addicted, addicted into the networks. All those are concerns. Look at the kids who is spending time in the screens. There are health concerns, definitely. Correct? Digital footprints, you cannot delete it. Is that a big drawback? Correct? See, whatever I do in my digital space, I can't delete it. See, if I want to scan all my employees, all my departments, I can just like that scan it, get a footprint, how ethical, how immoral, anything. What report I want, I can get it at hardly any cost. I used to tell my daughter, your digital footprints, I can buy it for 20,000. You tell me whatever you have done, I can give you a report just like that. Where you went, what did you do? Did you get what I'm saying? All these are major drawbacks. I'm saying that there are a set of drawbacks. I'm making it short. There is a set of drawbacks, but the plus sides are so exciting. You don't bet on the plus sides, you lost the business. Okay.
So
is that clear?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. One last question for the day is from Pananda Suraj. So the question is, I believe in India that we need to be updated with the educational level in technology. As a student going out after graduation faces big gap between what we learned and what technology is used in current. So how can we reduce that gap? Coming up with educational policies at national level or by the college university level efforts. So what are your thoughts on it?
I'm very clear. This is a very common question which I continuously get also. You look at the digital platforms which are there on online learning, MOOCs, correct? I am not commenting Coursera alone. Udemy is there, edX is there. Lot of them are free. Not all those courses are, you have to pay 20,000 kind rupees. Most, right, for the best of MIT, Stanford, Berkeley's content, you ask for financial aid, every kid will get it. I have never seen a kid who would basically come back, sir, they have not given me financial aid. These are courses worth 2,000, 20,000, 30,000, etc. Okay, listen. What am I saying? What is my role as a faculty? My role as a faculty now is just to connect to these dots. There are a lot of pockets. Say, for example, the course which I am teaching, digital transformation. What am I telling? I will say what is cloud computing, what are the features of cloud computing. I said, you have to create a cloud platform. Go to Amazon Web Services, go to Coursera, Udemy, do a course. I will also show how to do a course. My job is to take just the questions. Every student is pretty excited to go to the cloud, Amazon Web Services, AWS Workspace, create a virtual space, start browsing at 1 terabytes per second, which is, Geo is, I am getting a speed of something like 2 Mbps per second. I get something like 1 terabyte per second, 1,000 times, 500 times faster networks. Show the students this is what it is. You remember, every student will browse, go click it. I give this assignment for a class of 40. The next class, I am sure almost 35 of them will do it. Create a virtual space. Show them these are the platforms which are there, where you can learn what is digital transformation, how you should basically, what is the management of the future, what are the, Coursera has good content, London Business School's courses, AI for everyone, Andrew MG, the founder of Coursera, course, a number of people, it's a must-do course. I said before coming into the class, do this course and come and sit in the class. Otherwise, you are not fit to sit in the class. Out, straight, first day. Correct? Everybody knows what's a platform. What am I doing? I just connect these dots. That is it. There is a definite gap. No faculty can bridge this gap into bringing it into curriculums. We have to just explore what people are teaching and then expose that to that. That is what I feel. That's the best way to bridge the gap, is what my take is. I know it's a digital platform. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else? I know there is a time. We are also a little bound extra. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Anything else?
No, sir. If any more questions are there, we will put it across to you, or we can share it with the participants. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
take it over to Neena, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, John, sir. Dr. Matthew, thank you for a very illuminating session. I was almost tempted to ask Alexa, are there any more questions for Dr. Matthew? I guess the next conference, we will be there.
Yeah, correct. In fact, in my class, I put a Alexa drive and try to replicate me with Alexa. If Alexa cannot answer only, I will chip in.
Are you allowed to say, I'm sorry, I do not understand that question?
Yeah, you can basically do that also.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew. I should not take up too much time of the delegates who are waiting to present.
Very sorry. I know, going beyond the time.
Right. Thank you for talking to us about this gap, the fact that we do possess some amount of, as individuals, that we do access technology. We are perhaps in some ways ahead of our policymakers, perhaps, but the gap exists. It is now the time to fill the gaps. It is almost a situation of either you close the gap or you perish, and that this illuminating concept you talked about of digital, the DNA of digital masters, the importance of mapping your digital capability and your leadership capability, that they both need to come together, and that convergence is not just convergence that we understand, but is it even a greater scale. You've given us great examples or taken us back to examples of Baiju and other companies, especially in a time like this where we are now here on an e-platform. It is perhaps even more important to understand those gaps, map the gaps, and then go forward. So thank you, sir, for a very illuminating session. We hope you enjoyed being with us. And if there are questions, I'll send them forward to you. May I now request Professor Vijay Vishwakarma to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Very good morning to one and all. An ignited mind is the most powerful weapon on the earth, above the earth and under the earth. And this is God through education. A very good morning to one and all present. On behalf of the Bansanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, I, Vijay Vishwakarma, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, deem it a great honor and privilege to deliver the vote of thanks. At first, I would like to express our profound gratitude towards our benevolent management, Shri C.A. Shankar B. Shetty, Chairman, Powai Education Committee, Shri B.R. Shetty, Vice Chairman, Powai Education Committee, Shri Nityanand Hegde, Vice Chairman, Powai Education Committee, Shri Harish Vasu Shetty, Secretary, Powai Education Committee, Shri C.A. Harish D. Shetty, a Treasurer, Powai Education Committee, for supporting us for the conference. Thank you so much, sir. Also, I express my gratitude towards Dr. Sandeep Singh, who are General Manager, for his constant support and help for organizing this conference. I thank Professor Pratibha Gadgeli, who is a Vice Principal of Junior College, for gracing the occasion. I extend a very hearty thanks to our international guest, Mr. Dave O. Gorman, former professor at Santa Fe College, Florida, who has spared time from his busy schedule for gracing the occasion and delivering the inaugural address. Thank you for your very interesting and thought-provoking address. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sajan Matthew, Registrar Examination and Evaluation, Alliance University, Bangalore, for his present and encouraging speech on the use of AI, blockchain in this digital era. Your presence has added grandeur to today's function. My obligations are to Dr. Arvind Luha, HOD in Commerce, Ismail Yusuf College of Arts and Commerce, Jogeshwari, Mumbai, and Chairman, Board of Studies in Accountancy, University of Mumbai. Also, Dr. MP Rishikesh, Director CMR, Center for Business Studies, Bengaluru, and Dr. Mangesh Karandikar, Director, MET Institute of Mass Media, Mumbai, distinguished chairperson for the technical sessions, who have accepted our invitation and given generosity of their time. I'm sure your participation will add depth to the content and the deliberations. Thank you for joining us. I also would like to thank Principal of Loknete Vekantrao Hire College, Nashik, and Saraswat Vidyalaya Sridhara College, Goa, who are our academic exchange and research collaborator. Thank you, sir, for joining us. An event of this magnitude requires meticulous planning and execution and eye for details. We have been extremely fortunate to be able to draw upon the kind support of our principal, Dr. Sridhara Shetty, who has demonstrated initiative and involvement at every step and made the task easy. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our IQAC coordinator and vice principal, Dr. Liji Santosh, for her constant support. Heartfelt thanks are due to the convener and vice principal, Mr. Sandesh Shetty, co-convener, Mr. Brinder Singh, co-convener, Ms. Nidhi Achandukar, for continuous organization of the conference. It is unfortunate that I cannot thank everyone by name, but I must place on record appreciation of the untiring efforts by organizing team, technical head Dr. Tushar Sambare and his team, and other teaching and non-teaching members. I express grateful thanks to the placement head, Mr. Vrinder Singh, whose wholehearted support in getting sponsors has made this conference a reality. An event of the dimension involving so many participants from state, national, and international requires immense planning and preparation. I strongly believe that delegates will engage in fruitful deliberations and exchanges that will help all the stakeholders to redefine the business in future. I'm also confident that amount of effort put in the organization of the conference will make this event a memorable one for all the delegates. Thank you for joining us on this one-day international e-conference. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vijay sir. Thank you to the guests. Perhaps it is also time to tell all our guests who have joined, our resource person, Dr. Matthew and Professor Gorman, that there have been many compliments that have been posted for both of you in the chat sessions. So we'd like to, we'd also now like to tell all the delegates that you may join your respective tracks with the link that has been provided for you. Dr. Arvind Lohar, Dr. MP Rishikesh, Dr. Mangesh Karandikar, if you're still with us in this session, sirs, we will start with the 3 different tracks very soon. The links, I think, have been sent to you. Thank you, everyone. Tushar sir, can we now end this session?
No, the links, I don't have the track link with me.
Sir, yes, we will very quickly give this to
All
you.
right, fine.
Thank